Welcome to Belly Up to the Blackboard, a podcast focused on the reality of teaching and other musings from and about professionals, hosted by Chris Munn and Justin Russell.
Welcome to episode 2 of Belly Up to the Blackboard. Today's episode, we're going to title it The Great Resignation.
Bum, bum, bum.
Before you panic, this is not some giant announcement or anything.
Yeah, we don't plan on doing anything political today.
If you listen to or read anything about education, you notice that there's a lot of teachers, leaving the industry or the educational realm, and not a lot coming in.
Yeah, there's a huge shortage. I don't know what state you guys live in or where you're from, but I do know Iowa is fast-tracking a lot of educators who are at college level and those things, and they're trying to even pull in people from the public sector to come teach, kind of lowering some of those requirements. So,
yeah, and we'll get into that. There's an article I found in the Associated Press that it's pretty interesting on the different things that states are doing to, even just for substitute teachers. They're lowering requirements and age, and we're going to talk about that. But before we do that, we're going to jump into, let's say you do leave the teaching industry, right? What are you going to do? Right?
Yeah, I know, yeah.
So we're going to talk about maybe the top 5 jobs better than teaching, quote unquote, and then maybe the top 5 jobs that are worse.
Yeah, so what requirement what kind of like matrix are the teacher in us is going to say, like, all right, here's our scoring criterion. Are we saying better as in like pay? Are we saying that are equivalent to what teachers do? Because I don't know if there is a profession that's out there that's equivalent to what teachers do. No,
when I made my list,
oh, look at you, Mr. Official,
I
making
made
a
a
list.
list. I had some time. No, there's different things that it's not always going to be like better pay. It could be better hours.
Yeah, because we've both left kind of for that idea of better pay or the grass is greener, right? Like we've both kind of ventured into that space.
Yeah, we've taken that 1-year hiatus, as one of our old colleagues called it, and found our way back. But no, so this is not a definitive list. This is just off the top of my head. Maybe it's just fun things you'd want to do. If you won the lottery.
Or even if skill set wasn't a question, right? Like, they always tell you to find something you love and you won't work a day in your life. Well, there's a lot of people out there like golf, right? They love it.
Absolutely.
But not very good and won't make much money, will they?
It's not on my list, but I wouldn't mind driving around on a golf cart all day, checking on people.
Yeah, I can hear you on that one. I would have to agree with you, though. I don't know if there's a definitive list. I don't know if it's kind of like when people rank cities, right? Like, such and such city's the best city of top 10, right? And I think there's so many criterion and factors you could make your own list. So,
yeah, and everybody's, like you said, everybody's just gonna be different. And well, let's just get right to it.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, number 1, not a possibility, probably. And if you know me, I like to hunt. I'm terrible at hunting, but I like to do it. And I've always said that I'd love to have some land. So for number 1 would be running a game farm, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I picture if you had a ton of acres, you were able to, whether you fenced it off or you didn't. And I just picture driving around all day, putting up deer blinds, trimming things up, driving around in a bobcat or or one of those mules, and
yeah,
it'd just be like at home all day.
Oh gosh,
that's a lottery win. That's what that is. If you win the lottery, that would be fun to do.
Well, thinking about like the stuff that you would not have to be concerned about in order to do that lifestyle, right? And I think you're right. And it may not even be a lottery lifestyle. There may be some of you out there listening to our podcast who are living that dream that we have, and you figured out a way how to make that a reality. But you're right. I think that would be stellar. Do you think part of that, though, Chris, is really the ability to make your own to-do list for the day, kind of creating that success criterion?
I think so. Yeah. Like I said, it's kind of like a lottery list of I've got a bunch of land. I can drive around on it all day, do things here and there, and then somebody pays you to come hunt on it, and that's how you make your income.
Oh, absolutely, man. No, that's a good one. I don't have a professional list like Chris does. I've often thought about. I love working with my hands. I love building things. I think that's why right now, the last 5 years, I could say probably kept me in education was that idea that we were building something. And for those of you who don't know, like Chris and I, we both do special ed, and then we both do math, and so we've really the last 3 years had to recreate curriculum every year. And I know so many of you out there who are teaching do the same. And so it's that idea of building things. And I think I would love to run my own, home flipping or remodeling. Not necessarily the designing side of it, but a wall goes there, a structure comes there, like
A wall comes down here.
Exactly. But it's that idea that I can make that to-do list. I know that you're right. If that wall doesn't come down today, there's tomorrow, and I don't have anybody that's going to tell me otherwise.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we've talked about that before. Eventually, going together and get a house and flipping it, like you said. Yeah, just working with your hands all day. It's enjoyable, at least I know for a hobby. And I don't know, like by the time I'm 60, if I'm working with my hands all day, how sore I'm gonna feel.
You're still gonna want to do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so number two. So number two is something we've kind of done already, of being like a sales rep for like a distributor, so like or a distillery, or working at a distillery. I mean, it's called belly up to the blackboard, and I'm not gonna lie, I do enjoy a spirit every now and then. And when we worked for a distributor, and we're you see the people out in Fairway and Hy-Vee handing out samples. We did that for a stint as part time along with teaching, and I just had fun. It was fun doing it. You talk to people.
Yeah.
You go to the big events. You didn't make a ton of money. It's part time, but it was a blast. I had fun doing that.
Yeah, and I think you hit something right there, man. Is a lot of people think that that teachers don't work a lot of hours, right? Like we get all those breaks, we get summer break, and people forget that there's a lot that happens behind the scenes. It's kind of like. I almost say it's almost like a concert you go to. You see those guys come out on the stage or do their deal, and then they just take off. But everyone forgets there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the curtain. And so these jobs that we're saying, they're by no means like the things that are going to change our lives. But in the same token, I think you're right. There's some excitement in it, and that's a criterion in itself, right?
Yeah, I think the fun of it. I mean, not every one of these checks off every list of enjoyable, makes a bunch of money, things like that. I mean, it's just one of those things that a different idea.
Yeah. All right. So my next one is kind of I would say a nerdy thing, but I would love to be a new board game tester. Like a guy, like someone who just, lock me in a room for 6-7 hours a day, give me like 10 different board games to try out, and I think I could do that. Now, my writing, and for all you English majors as you're listening to us, you can tell is not going to be the greatest. But in the same token, I think I could write a report or two about this new board game coming out or some new fancy game. I think I'd have fun at that.
Board games are fun. I think if we were younger, we'd probably say video game tester.
Nope.
Now it's board games.
I still say board games or card games.
Absolutely, that would be fun. You'd have to find a few more people because it'd be kind of boring on your own.
Yeah, well, now they have robots and all that
there
other
you go,
stuff.
Yeah. You can talk to Alexa. Can't say that too loud or she'll turn on.
Yeah.
All right, number 3 that I had on here. Okay, I don't know where I came up with this one because I've never done it. It just popped into my head. Like being a photographer at sporting events. I'm terrible at a camera. I don't have a camera.
Yeah.
I've got my phone. But I enjoy sports, and I don't know, maybe just being close and taking a cool picture.
Cool picture or two, or getting mowed over by somebody as you're taking a picture.
You
end up on ESPN. That would be good.
Yeah, one of those not top 10s. You just get smoked by a receiver run. And I don't know where I came up with that, but I put it on my list. That's my number 3, sports photographer.
All right, I like it. Well, there's a lot of money in it. I mean, think about all those opportunities. It's a niche area.
I'd have to be good at it, and I don't think I would be.
Well,
It's a lottery. It's another lottery one.
That's
right?
some years of practice, right?
Yeah.
And name recognition. There are days. Now, I do enjoy having stints of time where I'm on my own, and I think I would enjoy those guys who just haul stuff. Like, not even a semi driver, and I think I would enjoy that too. But for those of you who don't know, I'm like 5'3". I mean, I don't think I can reach the pedals very well.
He could put those blocks on the pedals.
Oh yeah. Anywho, but like I see them on the interstate all the time. They're towing like campers and flatbeds and everything else. And I mean, I know some of you are out there going, well, you could do that now, but I think like not going, 10 miles, distance. I think something, from state to state and just making that a full thing, like books on tape and all that other fun stuff.
Yeah, I think the camper one would be pretty easy. I mean, we both camp. We both, take campers around the state.
Yeah.
I know they'll do it from Indiana and they'll haul them all the way up to Alaska or, all over the country. And unless you hit into a storm, it would be a pretty nice thing to do. And I think they pay pretty well as well.
I think so too. And it's just the idea of, kind of that solidarity and being lost in your own thoughts. Now, I'm sure after a while they get kind of monotonous, kind of like, those people who travel 10 months of the year, 11 months of the year,
Yeah, a lot of windshield time. And, if you're solo and you don't have a family or anything, it maybe makes it easier. You listen to a lot of books on tape or podcasts.
For those of you who aren't that old like we are, that would be podcasting. Like that.
Audiobooks. Get a subscription to Audible.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so number 4. Now, this is one that it's more realistic. I would probably take a huge pay cut, but like just one of those guys, and I don't know if you guys have ever been to a gun range, but the guy that checks you in, gives you the target, turns on the lane so people can shoot, shuts it off, and I enjoy shooting a gun every now and then, and I think just working at a place that that has those, and you're able to shoot whenever you want. I mean, you can't buy the ammo there, but I don't know. That's probably the oddest one on my list, but I think it'd be fun. It'd be a monotonous job. You just shut your brain off, go and take care of business.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think that'd be a good one. I think that is more realistic, but you're right. I wonder what it would take to do that. Probably a lot of permits, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, not just run a gun, just work at one.
Oh.
Not open my own.
Oh.
No, just go to the local gun range and
you could do that part-time now, man.
I could do it.
You got a laptop in front of you.
That's true. I could do it now.
All right, so number 4.
Number 4 for you.
All right. Number 4 for me is I think it would take a lot of training, but I think I would like to be maybe a bomb disposal person. I honestly, I think about it. Like those of you out here who teach, the day you get evaluated literally is like disconnecting a bomb. Like, that kid who shouts out, "What are we doing? We've never done this before." And you're like, for the 100th time we have, right? Like,
if you're teaching stressful.
Yeah. And you go, like blue wire, red wire, is it on a timer? Is it not? And, those guys don't get lunch breaks, and we don't get lunch breaks. I'm not comparing by any way, means, or shape.
Not.
Yeah, I hope we don't get phone calls from bomb disposal guys. But, the ability to run that little robot in a high-tense situation. And, I always thought there was a lot of skill and kind of just badassery in that.
Oh, absolutely. Now, are you talking about running the robot or going out yourself and disposing of the bomb? Or disconnecting it?
After a few more
easy.
drinks, I might say the suit itself mainly. I don't know if those are two separate jobs, but
I don't know. That's a good question. Guy that runs the remote?
Yeah.
Or a guy that actually goes and pulls.
If any of you are out there on a
wire.
police force large enough to have a bomb disposal unit, feel free to email us. Send that in, Twitter it, whatever.
Yeah, let us know. I'd be interested to know if that's the same guy or that's two different. It's like the guy that goes and flies the drones. Is he the same guy that? I don't think he's the same guy that goes and is on the front lines.
No, but I don't think it's a guy who has, 1,000 hours of helicopter flight time either
That's
operating
true.
that sucker. So,
That's true. Okay, so bomb disposal, number 4 for you.
yeah.
Number 5, so without being like a college coach, just like a full-time coach. Like that's all I do. And maybe it's like part-time coach and that's all I do.
Yeah.
But if, that's you just coach, that's it.
Yeah.
I think that would be enjoyable.
Yeah, I think you're in the wrong state for that.
I think so too. I think I need to move to Florida or somewhere warmer. It's like 5 degrees right now. So
Where
that
they play
wouldn't work.
football year round.
Yeah, we might have to shovel our track off before the season starts.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
So full-time coach, but not a guy that recruits, like a full-time high school coach.
Yeah,
And that's all
that'd
you
be
do. Yeah, I think that's another lottery one because I don't think unless you go down south, and then you might make the money,
good. Yeah.
but not
Yeah,
up north.
I think so. I mean, don't you think a lot of those guys probably had like connections out of college, right? Like they
I'm sure.
they kind of knew, or they were like in the, they kind of bounced around from pro team to pro team as like an assistant,
I
like
think
an
so.
assistant.
Well, the
right?
resume is definitely longer than mine.
Yeah, well, maybe not longer, just more quality at times, right?
Yeah.
Like
That's true.
a small school in Iowa is not gonna, unless you're, like what, Ed Thomas or something like that, But
That's true. That's a good one.
yeah.
All right, number 5 for you. What is your number 5
Number
of the
five.
top 5? And these are not in like any particular
No,
order. Here. These are
like I
just
said,
5.
I didn't write a list. You know what? I always thought it would be fun. It kind of goes with what you said about the distributor. I would like to run a distillery, like my own distillery, not a bar. Like I don't want to run a bar because I know like margins are small and the logistics, and then you have your Friday night crowd of young people coming in and puking everywhere. Like I don't need that. Like I just want to like a master distiller, man. Like I think those guys are just intelligent, like sommeliers, like.
Yeah.
The amount of crap they have memorized and know, like it just baffles me.
And just their like what they can pick out
Oh, absolutely.
when they drink something.
Yeah.
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 I think running a distillery would be fun too. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Or a master
think,
distiller.
yeah, or even just running one, besides now if you have one in your house or whatever, don't even mom. I don't want to run that
A
one. But
legal distillery. You want to run a legal distillery.
Just the whole process and the science that goes into that stuff, is amazing. Yeah.
You know what they say, do what you love and you never work a day in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't want to be like what's that Discovery Channel show? The
Moonshiners?
Yeah, the moonshine. I don't want to do that. Like,
No?
no, I don't want to do that stuff.
I don't blame you. Yeah. Yeah, because that's illegal. You want to be legal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You're not going to get in trouble.
Too funny.
Okay, so now we're going to flip it and do the 5 worst jobs. Okay? Now, I came up with 2 so far, so I got to think of 3 more off the top of my head. Now, the first one, I want to make sure I preface this, is not that it is a worse job than teaching, is that you don't get, sometimes teachers don't get the respect that maybe we feel we deserve maybe, but I definitely do not think these people get enough respect, and they put their life on the line every day, and that's law enforcement. So I don't think it's a worse job than teaching. I just think that the, for better word, harassment or
It's
lack
a tougher
of respect.
job. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I think you're right, and I would agree. The emotional level, not just the physical, but I would think the mental level of that stress. Like,
Yeah, the chance that you're risking your life every single day.
yeah, like and it's hard enough thinking about like leaving the house after you say goodbye to your kid, and like some drunk driver could hit you or something. But I couldn't imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would definitely be tougher job. I'll say tougher job. I'm not gonna say worse. Tougher job.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to rephrase this kind of segment. Is I think there's tough jobs, there's tougher jobs. But then again, there's guys out there that empty porter potties and they're jobs that I would never do, but who make way more than we do, right? Like
Yeah, especially if they own the company too.
yeah, they found a niche area, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I would say something I'd rather not do instead of teaching. I almost went with the like dirty jobs type of list, like with Mike Rowe. I don't know if I want to go that route because I think those are hardworking, good people. Something though that I would prefer not to do is postal work.
Okay.
Delivering mail. Like you talk about physical strain, you talk about just all kinds of elements.
What do they say? Through rain, snow,
Oh God.
storms. I don't
Storms,
know. I can't remember the
monsoons,
motto.
whatever, man. Like I as soon as my socks get wet, I'm out. Like I can't
That's
do
the
it.
worst thing. Wet socks are terrible. I hate it.
I know those guys and ladies make pretty good money, man. Like, but yeah, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
I
The
get
ninth time I had to run away from a dog or someone who's mad I didn't deliver their mail, an hour earlier. Like, no, thank you, I'm out. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Number 2. Okay, so I was thinking about this, and this is still in the realm of education. A teaching associate, they have tough jobs. They work with some of the, I don't say most difficult kids, but some of the most challenging or, maybe the most challenging kids or situations. And, they are there day in, day out. And that's tough. So I would say, a teaching associate is tougher or I don't say worst job, but it's a job I wouldn't want to change from teaching.
No, absolutely not. It's the transition, right? Like, you go from like our position in kind of designing and implementing and just monitoring programming for students, and then going to, if you were to switch over to that parent position, you're really just running the program. And I always treat them the equivalent of like triage nurses, right? Like, they're the ones in the trenches doing the work, getting beat on, getting stressed out, getting really not really good pay at all. And
their first point of contact with, when something goes down with a kid, they're
the first line of defense. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
They're right in there.
So you're right. I 5-star that one. I completely agree, man. Like, so something I would prefer not to be doing instead of teaching. I would have to say, probably a daycare. Like I couldn't do it. Like, so like for student teaching, we had to work at an elementary school. Little kids, you gotta love them. They love everything. There's not a thing in the world they don't want to do, be a part of, or get into, right? Like, so there's nothing wrong with that. It's not the kids. It's just, man, oh man, the emotional and just physical and mental toll, 5 days in a row being at a daycare.
It takes a special person.
I thank my daycare worker for my daughter every single day. Like, it just, I hope they realize how much of a difference they make, because 9 hours a day they are with that kid and multiple kids, no breaks,
unless there's nap time.
It's a lot different. So
that's like being in elementary, and I'll go ahead and jump that into number 3. It's still teaching, but being an elementary teacher, because just same with daycare, you are working with young kids that they may have an accident, they have runny noses, they don't know how to take care of certain things. It's at least as secondary, especially high school, you can reason with most kids and have a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
You can tell them to take their finger out of their nose, and they get it. But
What's hilarious to me on that note is so many people when I say I teach special education, they go, God bless you, or it takes a special kind of person. I go, oh no, to me I'm normal, but it takes a special person to do elementary. Like, seriously, like the 100th time you've been interrupted in the last 60 seconds as you're trying to give a small lesson, or you hear the same story every 10 minutes from the same kid. Like, I God bless those people, because I could not do it. Like,
it is a tough job, that is for sure. Was that number 3?
Yeah, so
Or was that number 2 for you?
That was 2 for me.
So I'm on number 3.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so
I'm thinking here.
So that's all right.
I would say number 3 to go along with your postal worker, and I have no understanding. I've just heard working in an Amazon warehouse, I hear, is just crazy.
Yeah, everything you've read, right?
Everything I've heard, read is just, I mean, you have, and maybe it's just not Amazon, but certain things at a certain time. I mean, it is nonstop. And I think it's the same way with drivers. I don't know. If you're a driver or working in an Amazon warehouse, send us an email, let us know. But it's just, I've heard that the time you got to get stuff done is nuts. It's insane.
Yeah. Definitely send us some kind of experience with that or whatever. Obviously, if we share it, it'll be anonymous. But love to hear what true experiences those are, because obviously sometimes those articles and videos we see might be skewed, and so
yeah, absolutely,
definitely want to know the difference. I would say I would not want to be the person who drives a vehicle to transport deadly viruses or
that is extreme.
Not to be morbid, but God, it's like, to me, I hated wearing masks. And I hate being sweaty. And I know wearing those biohazard suits for 6 hours would suck.
Now, do you think you have to wear that if you're driving the car?
Yeah. Because, your vehicle's not airtight.
Viruses in the back, locked away.
Yeah.
You got to drive around in a biohazard?
Well, shoot, I would wear, the biosuit with another biosuit and ask you to duct tape me. Because I'm not getting that stuff in me, man.
I mean, I don't blame you.
And I know they go in, a viral, in a case, within a security truck.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure, now, I'm guessing you could take the helmet off. And then I feel
But then you might as well take the whole suit off. If the
right. But I'd feel like Marty McFly in Back to the Future when they're handling the radiation, Yeah,
that'd be a tough job.
Yeah, sure. I know that was the extreme, but I do think that it is good for perspective, don't you, to think about
Yeah, I mean, so your extreme makes me think of another extreme, and I don't think they do this nowadays, but if you were the first guy to test a bulletproof vest,
yeah,
I don't think I'd want that job.
No, and to think that was the reasoning, we need to know if this truly saves a life,
yes.
So we're gonna put it on somebody,
and we hope it stops. I don't know what the pay is. I don't know if there's a great insurance policy.
I think it was the new guy at work had to wear it.
Could be short straw. Short straw guy has to put on the old bulletproof vest.
Yeah,
no thanks.
I don't know about that one, but yeah.
I think that was my number 4.
Was the bulletproof vest?
Bulletproof vest, I think it was 4.
Oh, interesting.
So you're up, number 4.
Number 4. All right, so coming back from the extreme.
Okay.
But keeping on the extreme, who in their right mind grows up and when they're asked in high school what they're going to want to be when they grow up, says, I want to be the guy that does X, Y, and Z. Like driving virals from place to place. Is there an aptitude test that comes up that says you're best suited?
I think it's the ASVAB. Yeah, that's in high school. Yeah, I think virus driver is one of those.
Is that an actual title? I don't know. Anyhow, going back. I would not want to be a security truck driver.
Yeah, that would be tough.
And I haven't put a lot of thought in this, but, on the same level as, kind of trying to be one of those people that are pretty reflective, it's not even the danger. It is, to me, it is the monotonous routines they go through, right? Every day there is no variance in the moment they clock in to the moment they clock out.
No, I don't think so. Same route, same.
Same partner, same truck, same clock-in schedule, same paperwork. And like I said, I haven't researched it much, but every now and then I'll kind of take a look at some of those different types of jobs, and yeah, what I've seen, and it has to be right. Because anything out of the norm would.
Yeah, you got to stay on an exact schedule. I mean, if you forget one thing, who knows what happens?
Yeah.
One, I'm sure you get fired.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But I mean, that'd probably be the least of your problems.
Oh, absolutely. Like now, if I forget my keys, it's just I kind of call the office or go across the hall to you, right?
Have somebody unlock the door for you.
Right.
Yeah,
but
that's
there,
a little
like,
bit different.
What if you forget the keys to the back of the truck? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think you can call just a locksmith.
No. Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
Right.
Number 5. Oh, I had an idea. You got a number 5 yet?
I do.
Go ahead.
It's in
I'll let you jump
education. I could not be a high school counselor.
That was going to be one of mine.
Or even a middle school counselor.
Just counselor.
Gosh,
School counselor.
I could if I could be like psychoanalyst or some of those psychologists who really work on just being blunt, right? Like,
Yeah.
because to me, like, I think it's important to be empathetic and sympathetic, but on the same token, I think there's a lot of times where people just need the bluntness or kind of abrasive answer, right? Like, because so much of their life, people have been empathetic or sympathetic, and they've become accustomed to hearing people feel sorry for them. And I think at times they just need to be told straight up, right?
It's almost a good cop, bad cop.
Absolutely.
You've had good cop your whole life.
Yeah.
And this is where it's got you.
Yeah. It's kind of that idea, sometimes we tell students, like, hey, that they kind of want to do things their way. And sometimes I'll just look at them and go, look, hey, you've done things your way for 15 years. Where's it gotten you? And a lot of times they'll go, well, not very good. I go, well, maybe we should try something different, right? Like, let's think about that. Like,
that's where we're talking about what's best for students. What really is best for them.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we don't want to hurt feelings, but sometimes a blunt answer, or a strong consequence for what they've done is the best thing for them in the future.
Oh, absolutely. And it's like, and I completely agree with like Jordan Peterson when he says, he talks about raising kids up so they can, survive or operate or be accustomed to the world they're going to be in, right? And I don't think either one of us are advocating for completely abrasive and no empathy or sympathy, but in the same token, we live in a world where there's 7.5 billion people. I mean, the kids that we have to be prepared to live in a world where there's so much disconnect. And
you're not going to live at home your whole life.
Oh, absolutely.
And like you said, with some of our kids, you got to be able to get them ready to go right after high school, because out of high school, they're out of the house and getting a job, and they need to know what to be able to do to survive on their own.
Yep. And there's real problems, and I know everyone's got problems, and I know everyone, at times thinks their problems outweigh the problems of people around them. But in the same token, I think counselors in general just have a hard job. They do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially a lot of districts now where they're short-staffed, counselors have to play the administrative role or some additional roles because there are some gaps in personnel. So
absolutely,
I do not envy them, but I do respect them and highly, highly wish them well, because they have a crappy job. So
yeah, it's tough. Okay, so I was listening to what you're saying, but I was also thinking about what my 5th one is while you were talking, and it's in education as well. But a bus driver.
Oh my gosh!
Bus drivers have
cheers to you, bus drivers, because
a tough job. Not only do you drive buses for elementary, middle school, and high school, if a kid's acting up, I mean, you can only really yell because you can't pull the bus over, and unless it's an extreme situation. I mean, you're there trying to deal with that, turn around, tell them to knock it off while you're driving, and trying to keep kids safe. And it just reminds me of the in Billy Madison, Chris Farley being the bus driver.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it is a tough, stressful job. So,
yeah, because either you're the really strict bus driver, right, that doesn't have problems because you're the one who stays on it, or you're like the Chris Farley bus driver, right, who's just kind of really
snapped,
and now is just kind of mentally not there. God, and you remember the bus drivers we had? They were the strict ones. They didn't put up with anything, man.
No. And I think you could. I mean, I think you could do that back then. And now it's just tougher all around, I think. And
but part of the problem too is they knew our parents.
That's true. Yeah, having kids went to school with their parents drive buses,
Yeah.
that definitely makes a difference.
Yep.
Because you see them outside of the bus drive-in, and
Yeah.
they're not afraid to talk to your parents if you were acting like a fool
Nope.
on the bus.
Well, like we said, that was not a ranking of any kind, and it really was. And I mean, honestly, I know I can't speak for Chris, but I know he believes truly that it wasn't a diss on any profession either. But we were talking about the title of this podcast, and it is The Great Resignation. There are, regardless of the profession, wouldn't you agree, Chris, that there are thousands, if not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people looking to resign?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you see it, like you were saying, in education and other work, other fields as well. And when that happens, you need somebody to fill that spot. And that's another thing we're seeing in education, too, is not only are you seeing, a lack of students going into the education field and teachers resigning, you're also seeing a lack of substitutes. And now that becomes a problem, and that's what elevates the stress on teachers in the classroom, because you can read all the articles you want. You see how they talk about not having a planning period, which adds to the stress, which adds to teacher resignation.
Yep.
And,
Yeah.
and that goes to the article I found earlier about what are people doing and what are states doing to combat that lack of subs. And there's places around. There's one state that is having National Guard soldiers. They get their pay. They're coming into sub. Mm-hmm. Parents, if they pass the background check and do all that stuff.
Yep.
But they, they're not having to do the schooling that subs have had to do in the past.
Yep.
And the one that stuck out in my head, in my mind when I was looking at it, which was really shocking, was when they talked about, and I have to find the rest of it. There it is. They talk about a school district that's allowing people as young as 18 to be subs.
Oh, geez.
In a classroom.
Oh, geez.
I mean, to me, that just spells possible disaster.
Well, absolutely. And you know what? We obviously don't know the context or the background of that one. Yeah, I'd be interested to see what the discussions were about that age, right? Like if it was an arbitrary one, or if it was because those people are joining the workforce. But I think on one sense, I think a lot of you out there would probably agree. There has to be a bold, big line that's drawn in the sand about the requirements for teaching, right? Because we're not going to degrade or devalue the education that we all have. And if you guys are all out there like I am and Chris are, you probably have thousands of dollars in student debt because you went through the process that was spelled out with the high expectations to become a teacher. And, you think about universities now removing ACT, SAT requirements to get into colleges and universities. You're looking at, even our state is looking at only requiring people to have 4 years of work experience and then take the praxis. And I think about the time that we've all spent, whether that was in student teacher, practicum, those first, if you were like me, the first 6 years struggling to make any kind of good impression and to be a good educator. And here I am in my 13th, 14th year of teaching and still kind of struggling to see where that value is. And then to have somebody come in who's never taught before or whatever and be right beside you, right? On the same pay scale, the same value, the same skills, right? And
yeah, and I can see, there are some people out in, in the business world, wherever it may be, that are not in education, that they get that calling. Mm-hmm. They get the calling later in life than we did, obviously. But they have that desire to teach, and they are a master in their field.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. I agree that if we can give them, classroom management is different than running a crew at a construction site. If you want to become a teacher in construction class and things like that, and but I think there should be another pathway to allow those who want to transition into teaching. Now, I don't think it should be just taking a praxis test and here's your certificate and here you go. I think maybe, shorten the amount of schooling just for the fact that they have mastered this trade outside of education. But, that you do need that, student teaching part of it.
Right.
You need to do some of that, and you need to do some of that classroom management.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I was able to find that article, and it's from the AP. It says in Kansas, the state Board of Education has begun allowing districts to hire substitute teachers as young as 18 and with little more than a high school diploma. After waiving requirements, they have at least 60 college credits. So that's, to me, that is just, it's mind-boggling. Do we need subs? Absolutely.
60.
But to put an 18-year-old kid...
And think about how many hours 60 credits amounts to. I mean, if the average class is 3 credits, that's 180 hours we're saying that we can cut. Like, yeah, that is insane.
Yeah, and it's, maybe in an elementary school, but I cannot see that working. Even as a kid out of college, you still feel like you're not that much older, and you're not that much older than kids that are in high school. Now, an 18-year-old kid, and I don't know where they're going to put the kids, and maybe they won't have anybody that's 18 that wants to be a sub. I don't know, but to me that becomes a problem.
Well, and then, yeah, and I'm not dissing anyone from Kansas, but because I don't know their situation, and maybe they have a stark difference than other states, but I don't know about you and what you would say, Chris, but I can think back to when I was 18. There's no way in any realm I was prepared to teach a group of 25 kids anything.
No.
Like, geez Louise, at 18, I think I was still trying to figure out, if my pants matched my shirt. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then to go into a classroom of elementary kids and teach them the alphabet and how to reason and how to,
and even as as a sub, you follow sub plans that should be left by a teacher.
Yeah.
I don't think they always are. But, even that is just having that classroom management. What do you do? I know when I was a new father, having a kid that had an accident, I can't imagine being an 18-year-old kid and all of a sudden, a kindergartner comes up to you and...
Yeah, but I can even imagine being a parent, going to parent-teacher conferences. And not saying this is an ageism thing, but looking at a teacher who's telling me my kid is having difficulties and going, okay, how do you know this? Like, you're reading a chart? Well, tell me what experience you has that says the chart is correct, right? Like I want some definitive information. And I think they're going to I hope that Kansas and those districts that are doing that have talked to their lawyers, their district lawyers, about kind of the possible outcomes, right? Like,
I would think that before they do anything, they would, make sure legality-wise.
Yeah.
But it is a problem we have, a lack of teaching, lack of subs, and
but our state, they're starting to do, and I talked about this a little bit last year, which was education fell behind what nursing was doing, right? Like they still required their nurses who were going into the field of nursing to still meet specific requirements, but what they did is they cut down that practicum or internship or whatever that's called. And I said that's what the teaching profession should have done. So anyone in their practicum or student teaching should have been able to sub, right?
Yeah.
Because it just makes sense, because it's essentially the same thing.
It's real world scenario, right?
Absolutely.
Real world practice. Absolutely.
And even if they would have said, okay, only K through 8, we're going to do it for. Think about the amount of subs that would have freed up.
Yeah.
And I know, Chris, you and I had this conversation many years ago, but we are students of history, and we can look back and say everyone kept talking for many years that there was going to be a huge retirement from the amount of retirements from the baby boomers.
Yep.
And I know you and I had that conversation about what are people going to do, or districts going to do, when that happens, because it's going to hit education. It's not like people in their 60s, late 60s are going to want to stay in teaching. I mean, they're almost to their rule of whatever, 88 or whatever it is. And,
Yeah, and I think that was coming up, right?
Yeah.
And then some of those teachers were retiring, were subbing,
yeah.
right? They still wanted to be in education, but then all of a sudden the pandemic hits as well.
Yeah.
Now you have the baby boomers retiring. They're, you know,
We're
all of a
given
sudden
options to retire, yeah.
You're given options to retire. They, you know, they start subbing, right? So you're losing some of those people. You still have some, and now all of a sudden you talk about the pandemic and the threat of getting a virus in school. Now you have those people that are the most affected or most the chance to get it are going to not sub. We saw that too. So now you have a pool of subs shrinking down because those baby boomers retired. They were subbing. Now they don't even want to sub.
Yep.
And by that time, you know, you don't see a lot of them coming back.
Yeah, and there was already a shortage before the pandemic, and a few years before the pandemic, stats came out from the BOEE or whoever, and they were already saying there was going to be a shortage of teachers. And then, like you said, you throw on the pandemic, and then you throw in kind of really educators and districts. Man, I've never seen them hated like they were in the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's
So much anger and just disagreement on how to do things, and rightfully so, right? Because the district should be a reflection of your community. And if the district isn't, you know, making decisions based on what the community is wanting, then I think there should be some disagreement, right? So
yeah, I think so, and I think we got to a point, and we don't need to hash the whole pandemic, but I think got to a point where nobody really knew what we should do.
Yeah.
So you're kind of throwing darts at the wall.
Oh, absolutely.
And you can't blame anybody because it's something nobody's ever gone through before. So, and I think that's where we, you know, going back to the title of the show, The Great Resignation, on that backside of that, you're starting to see the stress build up, the you know, the workload that is having some people take that chance of, I'm getting out of teaching, you know.
Yeah,
So,
and I think that, wouldn't you agree, though, like a lot of the stress has shifted from curriculum and test scores to classroom management and even dealing with mental health, right? Like,
oh yeah, absolutely,
right. And you're right. The title is The Great Resignation. I truly believe, and if anyone disagrees, we'd love to hear your opinion. Please reach out through email or whatever about your experience. But I truly believe there are a lot of people, teachers, on the fence before the pandemic. And God bless teachers, because a lot of teachers always have the perspective of, if I leave the classroom, then what, right? Like with kids, like they're like, if I leave the classroom, I'm going to be leaving these students, these kids, the families that I've built relationships with, and you're right. I think whatever we want to call it, if you want to blame the pandemic, but I do think the added level of stress the last couple of years has put on everybody brings a lot of people to the breaking point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, and that's what we're seeing now. So, I think that's probably a good stopping point.
I think so too. Yeah.
Sorry it took so long to get episode 2 out. Hopefully, we're planning on getting episode 2 next week, or episode 3 next week. And we really want to start having guests on as well. So, again, we hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and we will talk to you soon.
Yeah, and also, if you have a suggestion on like a guest, like as far as like if you would like to hear from an administrator, a teacher, instructional coach, even just a general ed teacher of some subject, yeah, we'd love to hear your suggestions.
Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to us. You can send us an email at bellyuptotheblackboardpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to follow us on Twitter, it's at bellyuppod, and Instagram is at bellyuptotheblackboardpodcast. And then also go ahead and subscribe to us on whichever platform you use to listen to your podcast. We'd love to see, last month I was tracking downloads, just seeing how many we got, and we just love to see it, and we'd love to hear from you guys, and with suggestions, any ideas. If you think you'd be a great guest, email us too, and let's talk. But we appreciate it, and thank you guys for listening.